Hi everyone. It's great to see you again. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Today, we have a brand new story to share with you. So, let's get started. Liz said with an odd smile, "Don't bother coming to this one. That happened 3 days before the company party. I might have avoided what happened next if I had known what it meant. My name is David. I'm an account manager for a big production company and I'm 38 years old. Liz and I have been married for 26 years. They were in love in high school and have been best friends since 4th grade. Everyone would call the life we built together the American dream. Riches that most people can only dream of, a big house by Lake Arlington, and a girl we love. Let's go back though. Liz, whose real name is Eliza, works as a graphic designer at a well-known advertising firm. She still knows how to get people's attention after all these years. Long hair, beautiful blue eyes, and a shape that doesn't seem to fit the time. People have always noticed her the moment she walks into a room. I was happy that she was mine, or at least I thought she was mine. We lived in Fort Worth, Texas, and grew up on the same street. We were always together by the time of senior prom. We both went to the University of Texas and shared a small one-bedroom apartment. Even though we were broke, we made it work. Those were good times, the ones that make you feel like you can't lose. We laughed about how we knew how to live together before we got married. Now, we got married right after college and had Maria a few years after that. Maria is 21 years old and goes to college at the University of Oklahoma. She is our only kid. William, a good guy from a wealthy family, is proposed to her. We really couldn't have asked for a better match because he treats her like gold. At least from the outside, life looked pretty great. We were more than okay with our money. Liz makes over $100,000 a year at her firm, and as an account manager, I make over $500,000 a year. Our dream home was a foreclosure home near the lake that we bought for $350,000 cash about 15 years ago. We fixed it up ourselves and made it our own. It's worth more than $2 million now. With that and our savings for retirement, we were pretty well off. It was even harder to see what was going to happen after that calm. We did the same things every day for years. Every morning, we ate breakfast together. At night, we talked about our days, and when we could, we went on date nights. It felt steady. She would talk about her coworkers, her tasks, and her work, and I would talk about the good and bad things that happen when I'm in charge of multi-million-dollar accounts. Not very interesting, but it worked, or so I thought. Looking back, there were little gaps, times when she didn't seem interested or was too tired to talk about her day. I ignored them, though. I had full faith in her. We were married for 25 years and have a lot of memories. She wasn't just my wife. Since she was my partner and teammate, I didn't think much of it when she casually brought up the work party and told me I didn't have to go. But she kept bringing it up, to my surprise. She always said nice things, but the point was always clear. "Albert, you don't need to go." I felt something was wrong for the first time in years. That was the beginning, that party invite and that rude idea. The spark was what set the match on fire. There was something I didn't know about my life that was about to be put to the test. When Saturday night came around, I was set on going to that party. Liz looked even more beautiful than usual. It was a tight black dress that hugged all of her curves. Her blonde hair fell over her shoulders, and her blue eyes looked brighter than ever. She always dressed well for events, but tonight it looked like she planned it. It looked like she was putting on a show when we got to the place. The first thing that caught my eye was that everyone knew her. Liz is nice, and she's always been the more outgoing of the two of us, but tonight there was something different about how people looked at her. There were polite smiles that lasted just a second too long, and looks that seemed to be full of meaning. Then there was him. A guy with gray hair and good shape walked right up to her before I could even ask her where we should begin. He was probably in his early 50s. His confidence made me feel uneasy. Liz gave him a friendly smile and put out her hand, which made him feel close. Like, this wasn't just a coworker. She quickly turned to me, kissed me on the cheek, and told me his name was Chad Smith and that he worked for her as an advertising salesperson. Chad, I couldn't get your name out of my mind. Even though I tried to be nice, I didn't like something about him. It was too easy for him to smile and laugh, and the way he looked at Liz. It wasn't serious. For the next hour, we talked and drank, but I stayed sober. Liz thought I was driving, but I really needed to clear my mind. Everything became interesting to me, like how often Liz looked at Chad and how close they stood when they talked. The soft touches on her arm that went on for too long. When we danced, things got worse. Liz and I had always liked dancing together, but she didn't seem to be paying attention that night. Her eyes would dart around the room every time I spun her. Chad was standing at the edge of the floor and looking at us with a smug grin. I followed her gaze and saw him. I'm sure the man was daring me to answer. We finally lost it when we sat down to rest at our table. Chad walked up to us, looked right past me, and asked Liz to dance. They both laughed. It made my blood boil with pride. Liz must have known I was about to lose it because she smiled sweetly at him and told him, all of my dances are for my husband. Even though I felt calm for a moment, Chad's angry look told me this wasn't over yet. After that, Liz went to the bar to get another drink. My nerves were on edge as I watched her from afar. That's when I saw Chad go up to her again. This time, they talked less loudly and more deeply. Liz begged him as she looked at him, and I could see her lips moving just enough to read them. She said, "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." That was it. I stood there frozen, my mind going off like a bunch of alarms. Dear. The word kept going through my mind. What the hell was this guy to her? I watched for the rest of the evening. Every word, every look, and every whisper. I could tell something was going on, and everyone in the room seemed to agree. People looked at us and at me with sadness in their eyes. I talked to Liz in the car when we finally got home, as if I were the last person to figure out a mean joke. When I asked, "What's going on between you and Chad?" I tried to keep my voice calm. She told me I was being paranoid and that Chad was just a coworker, but her voice was too cool and practiced. I really did want to believe her, but as she pretended to sleep next to me in bed that night, I knew one thing for sure. I was set on getting solutions and would not give up until I had them. Things were tense in the days after that party. Liz pretended that nothing was wrong and that I had made the whole thing up. She laughed at my jokes and smiled, and she even made my favorite meals. What I thought about that night would never go away, though. The looks, the whispers, and the way she said, "I'm sorry, sweetheart." I was dying from it. I chose to have the truth, not just words. Words could be changed or thrown out. Any man in my situation would have done what I did, they would have found proof that couldn't be argued with. A private detective was hired by me. His name was David Carter, and he was a straightforward guy who came highly suggested. I told him everything, put it all on the table, and told him to check into what was going on between Liz and Chad. David worked quickly and didn't waste time. Within a week, he began sending me reports. I felt like I had been hit in the chest by the first pictures. She was going into a hotel with Chad, which is my wife. It looked like this was something they did all the time. In another picture, they were kissing in the parking lot while not paying any attention to what was going on around them. I warned myself not to talk to Liz until David had all the facts. I had to know the whole story. The proof kept coming in over the next few weeks. More pictures, videos, and even sound records. It was even worse than I thought. Not only did they sneak around at lunchtime. This took place all the way through. Liz was caught on tape laughing about how easy it was to hide when she talked about her job as an office wife. It was hard to listen to her talk about me. She said in one clip that Albert would never guess, and her speech was light and carefree. He's working too hard to notice. That hurt. She thought I wasn't smart enough and wrote me off as a fool. I sat in my car outside David's office for what seemed like hours after he gave me the final report. I turned the pages and looked at the pictures and reading the texts. It all became too heavy for me to carry. It wasn't just a mistake or a weak moment. Everyone around Liz knew she was living two lives, except me. When I got home that night, I was normal. Liz smiled at me and asked how my day was. Then she went about her business as if she had nothing to hide. I paid close attention to everything she did and said. It drove me crazy how good she was at acting. I chose it was time the next morning. I set the package with all the proof on the table while I ate breakfast. I started to keep my voice down. Liz. Is it true that you would never harm me? She stopped moving and her fork hung in the air. She talked back and said, of course not. Why would you ask that? I quickly took out the first picture and slid it across the table. She stared at it, and the color in her face went away. Then I put down another one, and another one. Her face changed from shock to fear with each picture. She stuttered, Albert, this is not what it looks like. Her voice was shaking. I don't love him. It's just pure matter. It doesn't mean anything. My voice was cold as I leaned forward. It's very important to me. After that, she had a lot of reasons. How it was only a one-night stand. How she loved me all the time. She really believed I would never find out. It didn't matter, though. Now that I had the proof I needed, I couldn't go back. I felt something change inside me as I sat at the table with the woman I had loved for 25 years. The faith was broken into pieces that I knew I could never put back together. It was already bad enough that Liz had an affair, but what happened next hurt even more. Things were tense in the house after our fight at breakfast. Liz kept trying to say sorry and explain, but everything she said made me more angry. She said it was an error. It doesn't mean anything. A relationship that lasted a year, and she thought it didn't matter. I chose to work for a few days because I needed some space. Then Maria called. My daughter, whom I love very much, was always a good thing in my life. When her name came up on my phone, I thought it might be just what I needed to take my mind off of things. I tried to sound normal when I said, "Hi, sweetheart." I knew something was wrong as soon as she spoke, though. Daddy, she said with a stutter. I just spoke with my mom. She's very upset. She said that you threw her out of the house. What's going on? It broke my heart. Even though I hadn't kicked Liz out yet, it was clear that she was already changing the story. After taking a big breath, I told them everything. I told Maria that Liz had been seeing Chad and that it had been going on for more than a year. What did she say? It's not a big deal, Dad. I thought I heard her wrong. I said it again, not a big deal. Maria, your mom lied to me. For a year, she lied to me. She sighed as if I were being unreasonable. Dad, it's the year 2000. Some people have affairs. Things happen. No one really cares that men do it all the time. I yelled, I never did that to your mom. Never once did I lie to her. Then her tone changed, becoming protective and almost condescending. You might have done better, though. You might not be so upset about this. Dad, you need to calm down and let Mom come home. She loves you and is your wife. What I heard made no sense to me. My own daughter was on her mother's side and acting like I was the bad guy because I was hurt. It felt like another deception on top of the first one. Things got worse. Maria also said, by the way, I know Chad. He's really nice. My mom and I talked about how we think he should attend the wedding. What? It was louder than I meant for it to be. Maria said, he's important to Mom, like it was nothing. I like him too, to be honest. He should be there if his mom wants him to be. He might even be able to walk her down the aisle with you. I was done. I told Maria in a cold voice, if Chad is at your wedding, I won't be. After a short pause, she told him, Dad, you're being silly. No, I said in a firm voice. Do you want Chad to come? Okay. I'm not going to be the father of the bride, so let him do it. Before she could say anything else, I hung up. My chest felt tight, and my hands were shaking. I had always been there for Maria and helped her. It was now her turn to blame me in order to protect her mom and a guy she barely knew. Liz tried to call me again that night. She begged me to make things right when she came into the bedroom with tears running down her face. But then she had the nerve to add. Albert, I want us to fix this, but I also want to keep seeing Chad. That is something you need to accept. I didn't do anything but stare at her. I told Liz in a low voice, you need to leave. No, she didn't. At least not yet. But at that very moment, something inside me broke. My wife and daughter were not who I thought they were. And I knew I was by myself for the first time. When Liz told me she wanted to fix things with Chad still involved, I felt like I had gone crazy. I knew right then that I was done, not just with her but with our whole life together. Our home, our spouse, our habits, and even our dreams. They were just a show now, but I wasn't going to leave without something. If Liz and Chad thought they could make fun of me and get away with it, they were wrong. I began to plan behind their backs. I knew how to think carefully because I had been in charge of accounts for years, and this was no different. First, I had to make sure I had enough money. Liz might have been good at visual design, but she let me handle the money. She didn't know how our accounts were set up or how much cash we had on hand. That made things better for me. The first thing I did was move everything I could. I put a big chunk of our savings into an account in a foreign country with a name she could never find. Then I took out a big loan against our house. I never really owned the house, but Liz always told her friends that it was true. No, we had already paid off the first debt, but I often refinanced for investments. She didn't even bother to ask. After getting the loan, I borrowed against her BMW too. It was worth around $45,000, and I was able to borrow $40,000. Every penny went straight into accounts that she would never see. That bill is in her name only. I worked on this in silence for weeks, making plans every free moment. At the same time, I pretended to be over the deception. Liz and I agreed to try to make things better. She looked happy and even smug, like she had won. She had no idea that each day she spent at Chad's motel was a new day. I was almost able to pull the rug out from under her. Things were going really well at work. The company was merging, and they gave me a buyout deal worth more than $500,000. I agreed right away and set up for the money to be sent straight to my account in a different country. Then came the next part, which was stopping the wedding costs. Maria's ideal wedding? Thrown out. I called the planner and told her I wouldn't be paying for anything. Instead, I suggested Maria ask her boss for help. We were both shocked, but I didn't care. Maria could handle the consequences if she chose to vote with Liz and Chad. Finally, I needed Liz to sign off on some papers that she had no idea what they were. I made up fake life insurance plans and told her they were part of a new program at work. I gave her the papers one night after a few drinks of wine and told her we needed to get them notarized. She was so drunk that she agreed without reading the text. The deal was sealed by her signature. Everything took about 2 months, but when it was over, I was ready to go away. The house, the car, and the bills. She had to deal with them now. Soon enough, the bank would come calling, but I would already be gone by then. Not making a face was the hardest part. I sat across from Liz at the breakfast table every day. Hearing her talk about what she wants to do for us. Every word she spoke made me remember how far she had changed from the woman I used to love. But I didn't lose my temper. I just smiled and nodded while counting down the days. I turned in my work badge on the last day, packed my bags, and left without looking back. I would be a ghost by the time Liz found out what had happened. She thought she was going to trick me, but I was 5 steps ahead of her the whole time. It felt like getting fresh air after being stuck in a room full of smoke when I finally left. Even though I was free, I knew Liz and everyone else who thought they could treat me badly was in for a rough time. A week after I left, the first cracks appeared. It went through with the loan against the house, and the bank called Liz right away. She was caught off guard. People had told her for years that the house was paid off in full. Along with it came a $2 million bill that she had no idea how to pay off. The BMW is the same. The bills kept coming due, and Liz couldn't keep up without my income. Though I thought she asked Chad for help, I believe he was busy with other things. I told his wife about the affair, and she asked for a divorce. She stole the house, most of their things, and even got him fired from the advertising business they worked for. It looks like she had a lot of power and was a big shareholder. Chad used to be a great sales rep, but now he drives an old, beat-up car for a rideshare business. At the same time, Maria was not getting the happy finish she had hoped for either. I called her fiancé William and told him everything after I stopped giving her money for the wedding. I even sent Maria tapes in which she said the affair wasn't a big deal. William was very sad. He broke up with her and left Maria to deal with the consequences. Maria moved in with Liz because she didn't have a rich boyfriend to protect her and her dad wasn't ready to help her out. They stayed in a rough part of town in a 2-bedroom flat. I read that the place wasn't even good enough to live in, but they had no choice after Liz lost her house and car. I could have stopped there, but I wanted Liz to fully understand how bad her mistakes were. The proof of the affair was given to Chad's wife and Liz's boss. She lost her job's image, and in the end, she was fired. I last heard that she was working as a waitress at a diner by the side of the road. For myself, I moved to Florida. A new start, nice weather, and only myself to answer to. Both the truck and the travel trailer I bought were paid for in cash and put on the title in the name of my cousin. My money was safe in accounts outside of this country, and I got a great job with one of the big companies here. I hear bits and pieces about Liz and Maria from time to time. There is no question that they are having a hard time. And Chad is also very unhappy. I don't feel sorry for them, though. They chose what to do, and now they have to deal with the results. It's better than I ever thought my life would be now. I always have a clean mind when I wake up. There are no lies or problems in it. Today the sun is shining and tomorrow seems very open. I may have lost my family and marriage, but I gained freedom, which is much more important.